First contact gone wrong. The mining station Kepler 442 floated in the darkness of space like a metallic flower, its arms extending toward the asteroid field that had provided rare minerals for the past 3 years. Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead as he examined the readouts from the deep core extractors. The numbers looked good, better than expected for this sector. Another successful week in paradise, he muttered to himself, taking a long drink from his coffee mug. The mug bore the faded logo of his old construction company back on Earth, a reminder of simpler times when the biggest challenge was fixing a broken bulldozer, not maintaining quantum drilling equipment in the void of space. The proximity alarm shattered the peaceful moment. Jake's console lit up with warnings as massive shapes appeared on the edge of sensor range. Dr. Elena Vasquez rushed into the control room, her dark hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail and excitement gleaming in her brown eyes. "Jake, you need to see this," she said, her voice barely containing her enthusiasm. "We're about to make history." The main screen flickered to life, revealing ships unlike anything in human databases. They resembled enormous crystals, their surfaces catching and reflecting starlight in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The vessels moved with purpose, their formations precise and calculating. "First contact," Elena whispered. "This is really happening." The communication system crackled with static before a voice emerged, speaking perfect English with an odd harmonic quality that made the words seem to come from multiple sources at once. "Primitive mining facility. This is Commander Zephyr of the Crystalline Consortium. You are trespassing in our territory. Prepare for inspection and possible relocation." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Primitive? Well, that's a hell of a way to introduce yourself." He activated the communication array. "This is Jake Morrison, Chief Engineer of Mining Station Kepler 442. Nice to meet you too, Commander. We had no idea this area was claimed. Happy to discuss terms if you want to chat about it over coffee." A pause followed, filled with strange harmonics that suggested rapid conversation among the alien crew. When Commander Zephyr spoke again, the tone carried what seemed like amusement. "Coffee? Your biological stimulant beverage? We shall dock and conduct our inspection. Do not interfere with our procedures." Within an hour, the alien vessel had attached itself to the mining station with a connection that flowed like liquid metal before hardening into a perfect seal. Jake watched through the observation windows as figures in environmental suits glided through the docking tube. They moved with an eerie grace, their crystalline forms refracting light in impossible ways. Commander Zephyr stood nearly 8 feet tall, its body composed of what appeared to be living crystal that shifted between deep blues and purples. When it spoke, the sound seemed to come from within its chest cavity, resonating with harmonic frequencies. "Your species is young," Zephyr stated, examining the mining equipment with obvious disdain. "Your technology crude. These quantum extraction devices are perhaps adequate for your needs, but they disturb the natural resonance patterns of this asteroid field." Elena stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over. "We're always interested in learning about more advanced techniques. Perhaps we could arrange some kind of technological exchange." Zephyr's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been laughter. "Exchange? What could your primitive civilization possibly offer beings who have mastered quantum mechanics for millennia?" That's when everything went wrong. The deep core drill, Kepler 442's primary mining tool, began emitting a high-pitched whine that made everyone's teeth ache. Warning lights flashed across multiple control panels as the quantum containment field started fluctuating wildly. "Containment breach in Sector 7, Jake announced, his fingers flying over the controls. "The quantum matrix is destabilizing. If this goes critical, it'll take out half the asteroid field." Commander Zephyr examined the readings with growing alarm. "Impossible. Your primitive equipment should not be capable of generating a quantum cascade failure of this magnitude." "Yeah, well, apparently nobody told our equipment that," Jake replied, studying the diagnostic displays. The situation was getting worse by the second. Quantum energy readings were spiking beyond anything he'd seen before. Several of Zephyr's crew members joined the commander, their crystalline forms flickering with rapid light patterns that Jake assumed was their equivalent of panic. They worked with incredible speed and precision, their technology interfacing directly with the mining station systems. The resonance frequency is completely wrong. One of them reported in harmonics that hurt to hear. The quantum field. Equations are fundamentally flawed. This will require complete reconstruction of the containment matrix. How long? Zephyr demanded. Minimum 18 hours with our most advanced field generators. Jake looked at the countdown timer on his screen. We've got maybe 20 minutes before this thing tears a hole in space-time. Your fancy equipment won't help if we're all dead. Commander Zephyr's form darkened to deep purple. Then we must evacuate immediately. The mining station is lost. Hold up there, Sparkles, Jake said, standing up from his console. He handed his coffee mug to Elena. Hold my coffee. I want to take a look at this thing. Elena stared at him in disbelief. Jake, you heard them. This is quantum mechanics beyond our understanding. You can't just what? Jake was already pulling up the technical schematics on his personal tablet. Fix it? Elena, I've been working with quantum drills for 5 years. Sure, theirs might be fancier, but the basic principles are the same. He walked over to the main control panel, ignoring the protests from both Elena and the alien crew. The quantum field readings were definitely scary, but Jake had seen similar patterns before during routine maintenance cycles. See, here's your problem, he said, pointing to a specific readout. Your quantum resonance frequency is fighting with our containment field harmonics. It's like trying to tune two radios to the same station, but slightly off frequency. All that interference creates feedback. Commander Zephyr moved closer, its crystalline form pulsing with skeptical light patterns. Your analysis is oversimplified. The quantum field equations involve 17 different variables across multiple dimensional matrices. Maybe, Jake replied, opening an access panel and reaching inside with a standard wrench. But sometimes the simplest solution works best. Watch this. What happened next would be discussed in academic circles across 3 galaxies for the next century. Jake Morrison, armed with nothing but a basic understanding of quantum mechanics and a lifetime of fixing things that weren't supposed to be fixable, proceeded to adjust the quantum field harmonics by manually recalibrating the containment matrix frequency generators. He used a wrench that a standard, off-the-shelf Earth manufacturing wrench that had cost him $12 at a hardware store in Detroit. The first adjustment reduced the dangerous resonance by 30%. The second adjustment, made while humming an old rock song under his breath, stabilized the quantum field completely. The third adjustment, performed with what Elena would later describe as casual indifference to the laws of physics, actually improved the drill's efficiency by 15%. Commander Zephyr and its crew stood in absolute silence. Their crystalline forms had gone completely transparent, which Elena's xenobiology training suggested was their equivalent of shock. That should not be possible, Zephyr finally managed. The quantum field mathematics alone require computational matrices beyond your species' capabilities. Jake closed the access panel and wiped his hands on his work shirt. Math's great and all, but sometimes you just need to listen to what the machine is telling you. This old girl was running a little hot on the secondary containment field. Probably just needed a tune-up. He retrieved his coffee mug from Elena and took a sip. So, about that technological exchange program, you folks interested in learning some human engineering techniques? The silence stretched for several long moments. Finally, Commander Zephyr's form began cycling through colors Jake had never seen before. Your species, Zephyr said slowly, appears to operate outside our understanding of universal constants. We like to think outside the box, Jake replied cheerfully. It's kind of our thing. As the alien crew prepared to return to their ship, Jake noticed them taking detailed scans of everything he had touched, particularly the wrench. Elena was frantically taking notes on her tablet while trying to process what she had witnessed. Commander Zephyr, she called out as the aliens prepared to leave. Will we see you again? The crystalline being turned back toward them. its form now a steady, thoughtful silver. Dr. Vasquez, I believe this encounter will require extensive reporting to our Science Council. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that challenge our fundamental understanding of technological development. Is that good or bad? Jake asked. We are uncertain, Zephyr admitted, but we will be monitoring human activities with great interest. After the aliens departed, Elena turned to Jake with an expression somewhere between awe and terror. Do you realize what just happened? You just rewrote quantum physics with a wrench. Jake shrugged and returned to his console. I fix a drill. Same thing I do every day. No, Jake, this is going to change everything. First contact with an advanced alien species, and you showed them that humans can do the impossible. Outside the observation windows, the Crystalline Consortium ships were already transmitting data back to their home worlds. Unknown to Jake and Elena, their encounter had triggered something unprecedented in galactic history, the first human incident report. Within hours, the report would reach every major civilization in 3 star systems. The message was simple, but alarming. Human species demonstrates reality-altering capabilities when presented with impossible tasks. Recommend immediate classification upgrade and continuous monitoring. Jake Morrison, blissfully unaware that he had just become the galaxy's first human legend, finished his coffee and returned to work. After all, those mineral quotas weren't going to meet themselves. But across the galaxy, alien civilizations were beginning to ask a question that would reshape interstellar relations. If humans could fix impossible problems with simple tools and casual confidence, what else were they capable of? The answer would terrify them. The word spreads 3 months after the incident at Kepler for 42. Captain Sarah Chun was having the worst day of her career. Her cargo freighter, the Lucky Strike, was limping through the Vega system with a damaged navigation array, carrying a shipment of medical supplies desperately needed on the colony world of New Harmony. Captain, we've got company, announced her co-pilot, Tommy Rodriguez, his voice tight with concern. Tommy was one of those mechanics who could fix anything with enough time and the right tools, but right now, they had neither. The main screen displayed 3 sleek vessels closing in fast. Sarah recognized the configuration immediately. Zephyrian patrol ships, known throughout this sector for their strict adherence to shipping regulations and their complete lack of humor about violations. This is Patrol Leader Crix of the Zephyrian Commerce Authority, came the buzzing insectoid voice over the communication system. Freighter Lucky Strike, you are operating outside approved shipping lanes with damaged navigation equipment. Prepare to be boarded for safety inspection. Sarah muttered a curse under breath. The Zephyrians were sticklers for rules, and her current trajectory through the asteroid field was definitely not in any approved shipping manual. But the standard route would add 3 days to their journey, and the medical supplies couldn't wait that long. Patrol Leader Crix, this is Captain Chun. We're carrying emergency medical supplies to New Harmony. Colony reported outbreak of Rigelian fever. Every hour counts. Regulations are absolute, Captain Chun. No exceptions for emergency claims. You will submit to inspection and accept escort to standard shipping lanes. Tommy looked up from his repair work, frustration clear on his face. Cap, the NAV array is fried. Even with Zephyrian escort, we'll never make it through standard lanes in time. Those asteroids are shifting too fast for manual navigation. Sarah stared at the asteroid field displayed on her screen. Thousands of rocks tumbling through space in seemingly random patterns, creating a 3-dimensional maze that changed every few minutes. The Zephyrians were right. It was insane to attempt passage without proper navigation equipment. Patrol Leader Crix, I understand your position, but people are dying on New Harmony. Give me 1 hour to try fixing our navigation system. Negative. Standard procedures require immediate escort to safe lanes. That's when Sarah made a decision that would add her name to the growing database of human incidents being compiled by alien civilizations across the galaxy. Tommy, she said, standing up from her captain's chair and handing him her coffee cup. Hold my coffee. I'm going to fly us through that asteroid field. manually. Tommy's wrench froze halfway to a circuit board. Cap, that's impossible. The asteroids are moving in 17 different vectors simultaneously. No biological could calculate trajectories that complex in real time. Maybe not, Sarah replied, settling into the pilot's seat and cracking her knuckles. But I've been flying through asteroid fields since I was 16. Sometimes you don't need to calculate everything. Sometimes you just need to feel it. What happened next would be recorded by the Zephyrian patrol ships and immediately transmitted to their navigation guild. Captain Sarah Chun, using nothing but manual controls and what she called seat-of-the-pants flying, proceeded to thread her cargo freighter through an asteroid field that their most advanced computers had classified as navigationally impossible. She didn't just fly through it, she danced through it. The Lucky Strike twisted and rolled between tumbling rocks the size of buildings, using gravitational eddies and momentum shifts that shouldn't have been detectable by biological senses. Sarah seemed to anticipate every collision vector before it happened, adjusting course with micro-corrections that kept them consistently 3 seconds ahead of disaster. How is she doing this? Patrol leader Crix buzzed frantically to their science officer. Unknown, Leader Crix. Her flight pattern defies our mathematical models. She appears to be using predictive algorithms that our computers cannot replicate. Halfway through the field, Sarah encountered a problem that should have ended their journey. A massive asteroid, easily 10 times the size of her ship, was tumbling directly into their path with no room to maneuver around it. Dead end. Cap, Tommy reported, his voice tight. That rock's too big to dodge and too close to change course. Sarah studied the situation for exactly 3 seconds, then grinned. Tommy, remember that trick shot you made in billiards last week? The one where you used the 8-ball to sink the 7? Yeah, but Cap, that was just, oh no. No. You're not thinking of hold on to something, Sarah announced, then fired the ship's thrusters in a pattern that sent the Lucky Strike into a controlled spin, directly toward the massive asteroid. The last possible second, she used the asteroid's own gravitational field to slingshot around it, picking up speed and redirecting toward their original destination. The maneuver was so precise that they emerged from the asteroid field actually ahead of schedule. Patrol Leader Crix's ships, which had been following at what they considered a safe distance, found themselves scrambling to keep up. Impossible, Crix buzzed, reviewing the flight data. She used gravitational mechanics that our pilots train for years to master. How does a cargo hauler execute advanced combat maneuvers? Over the communication system, Sarah's voice crackled with static and amusement. Patrol Leader Crix were clear of the asteroid field and on approach to New Harmony. Thanks for the escort, but I think we've got it from here. Word of Sarah's impossible navigation spread quickly through the Zephyrian Commerce Authority's networks. Within days, her flight pattern had been analyzed by navigation experts across 3 star systems. The conclusion was unanimous and disturbing. Humans appeared capable of processing spatial relationships and movement vectors at speeds that exceeded their known biological limitations. Meanwhile, Tommy Rodriguez was dealing with his own reputation-building incident. 2 weeks later, he found himself aboard the Arcturian flagship Infinite Wisdom, attempting to repair their primary engine core. The Arcturians were a species that had achieved technological perfection through collective consciousness. They shared knowledge instantaneously across their entire civilization. The quantum resonance chamber requires complete reconstruction, announced the collective voice of the Arcturian engineers. Our calculations indicate a minimum repair time of 47 hours using standard procedures. Tommy examined the engine core, a beautiful piece of technology that looked more like a sculpture than machinery. Every component was precisely engineered, every connection mathematically perfect. It was also completely dead. Yeah, this is fancy stuff, Tommy admitted, pulling out his toolkit. But you know what? Sometimes fancy just means there's more stuff that can break. He set his energy drink on a nearby console. Here, somebody hold my drink. Let me see what we're dealing with here. The Arcturian collective consciousness focused intently on Tommy as he began his examination. They expected him to run diagnostic routines, analyze quantum field fluctuations, and develop a comprehensive repair strategy. Instead, Tommy tapped the engine housing with his wrench and listened carefully to the sound it made. "Yep, there's your problem," he announced after 30 seconds of tapping various components. "Your primary resonance crystal is out of alignment. Probably shifted during that last hyperspace jump." "Impossible," the collective responded. "Our diagnostic systems show no misalignment in any resonance crystals." "Your diagnostic systems are looking for big problems," Tommy replied, opening an access panel that the Arcturians' own engineers hadn't known existed. "Sometimes the biggest problems come from the smallest causes." What followed was a masterclass in what Tommy called percussive maintenance. Using a combination of carefully applied force, intuitive understanding of mechanical systems, and what the Arcturians would later describe as impossible precision, Tommy realigned the resonance crystal using nothing but a wrench and a small hammer. The engine core hummed to life, running more smoothly than it had in months. "Your repair technique," the collective said slowly, "operates outside our understanding of proper mechanical procedures. Sometimes you've got to show the machine who's boss," Tommy replied, packing up his tools. "But you've got to do it with respect, you know? Can't just force things. Got to listen to what the machine needs." The Arcturian collective spent the next 72 hours analyzing every second of Tommy's repair work. Their conclusion was added to the growing database of human behavioral anomalies. Humans demonstrate intuitive understanding of complex mechanical systems that exceeds their technological base. Recommend caution when observing human repair procedures. Similar reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. On Rigel Prime, a human botanist had successfully grown Earth crops in soil that 3 different alien agricultural experts had declared completely unsuitable for organic life. Her technique involved what she called talking to the plants and giving them some tough love. In the Tau Ceti system, a human diplomat had resolved a trade dispute that had been deadlocked for 6 months by challenging both sides to a game of poker and somehow managing to make everyone winners. On Proxima Station, a human janitor had fixed a malfunctioning artificial gravity generator by hitting it with a mop handle in exactly the right spot, despite having no technical training whatsoever. The pattern was becoming clear to alien observers. Humans had an uncanny ability to solve impossible problems through methods that defied logical analysis. Even more disturbing, they seemed to do their best work when they casually handed someone their beverage and announced their intention to attempt something that everyone else considered impossible. The galactic intelligence networks began tracking what they termed human beverage events, incidents where humans consumed some form of liquid refreshment before attempting tasks that exceeded their apparent capabilities. The data was troubling. In 97% of recorded cases, humans succeeded at tasks that alien experts had declared impossible. The remaining 3% resulted in solutions that were technically failures but somehow led to better outcomes than the original goal. Ambassador Crix, now promoted to Chief of Xenobiological Studies for the Zephyrian government, compiled the first comprehensive report on human behavior patterns. "The human species," he wrote, "appears to operate under different universal constants than other known life forms. Their success rate at impossible tasks increases dramatically when they engage in specific behavioral patterns: casual dismissal of expert opinion, consumption of stimulant beverages, and temporary transfer of said beverages to nearby individuals. Most concerning is their apparent inability to recognize when tasks are impossible. Where other species would calculate odds and determine appropriate caution levels, humans simply attempt the task with confidence levels that seem inversely proportional to their chances of success." Recommendation: classify humans as chaotic beneficial anomaly and establish monitoring protocols for any situation involving human personnel and beverages. The report was distributed to every major civilization in the galaxy. The response was unanimous. Humans were to be monitored carefully, and any situation involving humans and drinks was to be reported immediately to galactic authorities. Unknown to the human species, they had become the subject of the most extensive xenobiological study in galactic history. Every human colony, every human ship, Every human individual operating in alien space was now being watched by observers trying to understand how they consistently achieved impossible results. But the aliens' curiosity was about to turn to alarm. Because the reports they were filing had reached the attention of the Galactic Council, and the Council was beginning to realize that humans weren't just lucky or clever. They were something that had never been encountered before in the galaxy, a species that seemed to exist outside the normal rules of probability and causality, and that made them either the most valuable allies in the universe or the most dangerous threat the galaxy had ever faced. Maximum threat level the emergency session of. The Galactic Council convened in a chamber that had seen 10,000 years of interstellar diplomacy. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in their environmental pods, biomechanical interfaces, and quantum consciousness matrices. High Chancellor Vortex, an ancient being whose species had been mediating galactic affairs since before most civilizations had discovered fire, called the session to order. Esteemed representatives, Vortex began, their translation matrix carrying overtones of deep concern. We gather today to address what our xenobiological experts have termed the human phenomenon. In the past 6 months, we have received over 3,000 reports of humans achieving results that our best scientists classify as impossible. A ripple of uneasy communication passed through the chamber. Representative after representative had brought their own stories of human encounters that defied explanation. The pattern is consistent across all reported incidents, continued Ambassador Crix, now serving as the Council's chief human behavior analyst. Humans approach problems that have stumped our greatest minds for generations. They consume some form of liquid refreshment. They hand this beverage to a nearby individual. They then proceed to solve the impossible problem using methods that appear to violate fundamental laws of physics, mathematics, or logic. The Ancient One, a consciousness that existed as pure energy and claimed to have witnessed the birth of their galaxy, spoke with a voice like solar wind. In my 47 million years of existence, I have never encountered a species that operates outside the boundaries of universal law. Yet humans consistently demonstrate abilities that suggest they exist in a state of controlled chaos. High Chancellor Vortex activated the chamber's central display. Our intelligence networks have compiled comprehensive data on what they term human beverage events. The results are disturbing. The display showed incident reports from across the galaxy. Each one followed the same basic pattern. Humans faced with impossible situations, casual consumption of beverages, successful resolution through methods that alien observers couldn't explain or replicate. Most recently, Crix reported, we've documented cases of humans teaching mathematics to species more advanced than themselves, repairing technology they've never seen before, and resolving diplomatic crises using games that they appear to invent spontaneously. The question before us, Vortex announced, is whether humanity represents an opportunity for beneficial alliance or a threat to galactic stability. That question was about to be answered in the most dramatic way possible. Alarms began blaring throughout the council chamber as emergency broadcasts flooded the communication networks. On the main display, readings showed a massive spatial anomaly forming in the Centauri system, a tear in space-time that was expanding rapidly and consuming everything in its path. Report, Vortex demanded. The spatial rift is growing exponentially, announced the collective mind of Arcturus, their synthetic voice tight, with processing strain. Current expansion rate indicates it will consume the entire Centauri system within 18 hours. Projected path suggests it will reach core galactic worlds within 72 hours. Asked the Ancient One. Unknown. The anomaly appears to be feeding on quantum energy and growing stronger with each solar system it consumes. Panic began to set in among the council representatives. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had never encountered anything like this. Their scientists ran probability calculations that all reached the same conclusion. The rift was unstoppable using conventional means. Evacuation procedures. Vortex inquired. Impossible. The rift's expansion rate exceeds our fastest evacuation capabilities. estimated casualties for 0.7 billion sentient beings across 12 inhabited systems. The chamber fell silent except for the sound of various species' distress signals. Then, from the back of the chamber, a small communication console activated. Uh, excuse me, came a distinctly human voice with what the translation matrix identified as a North American accent. I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. This is Mike Patterson from the human engineering vessel Bootstrap. We're about 3 systems away from that space-time thing you're talking about. Mind if we take a look? High Chancellor vortexes form shifted colors rapidly, the equivalent of stammering. Human vessel Bootstrap. This anomaly is beyond the comprehension of our most advanced civilizations. Your species lacks the technological base to even analyze the phenomenon, let alone address it. Well, maybe, came Mike's cheerful reply, but we're pretty good at fixing things that are broken. This space-time rift sounds like it's definitely broken. Ambassador Crix activated his communication array. Mr. Patterson, our calculations indicate this anomaly violates several fundamental laws of physics. It cannot be fixed using conventional methods. Conventional methods are overrated, Mike replied. Give us 6 hours to get there and take a look. Worst case scenario, we'll confirm what you already know, that it can't be fixed. Best case, maybe we figure something out. The Ancient One spoke directly to the human vessel. Young species, in my millions of years of existence, I have witnessed the deaths of stars and the birth of galaxies. This anomaly represents forces beyond mortal comprehension. Yeah, that sounds pretty impressive, Mike acknowledged. But here's the thing, I've been working construction and demolition for 20 years. Sometimes the biggest, scariest problems have the simplest solutions. You just gotta look at them from a different angle. High Chancellor Vortex consulted with the other council members through rapid-fire quantum communication. The consensus was clear. They had no other options. Human vessel Bootstrap, you are authorized to approach the anomaly. All council vessels will maintain safe distance and observe. Roger that. We'll be there in 6 hours. Bootstrap out. As the communication ended, the council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. They were about to witness either humanity's greatest triumph or their final catastrophic failure. 6 hours later, 3 human vessels appeared at the edge of the Centauri system. The Bootstrap was a working-class engineering ship, obviously built for function over form. Alongside it were the Lucky Strike, with Captain Sarachin commanding, and a repair vessel called the Percussive Maintenance, with Tommy Rodriguez leading a team of human mechanics. The space-time rift dominated the view screen, a swirling vortex of impossible colors that hurt to look at directly. It had already consumed 2 planets and was reaching toward the system's primary star. Well, that's a big one, Mike Patterson announced over the communication array. Sarah, Tommy, you guys seeing what I'm seeing? Yep, Sarah replied from the Lucky Strike. Looks like space-time is having a really bad day. I've seen worse. Tommy added from the Percussive Maintenance. Remember that time the hyperspace generator got hiccups? This is just bigger. The alien observers monitoring from safe distances recorded every word, trying to understand how humans could remain so calm when facing universal destruction. Bootstrap, this is High Chancellor Vortex. Our analysis indicates the anomaly is self-sustaining and cannot be collapsed using any known methods. Maybe not, Mike replied, but I've got an idea. It's going to sound really stupid, though. All of your ideas sound stupid to us. Ambassador Crix interjected. Please proceed. Well, this rift thing is basically eating energy and growing bigger, right? Like a fire that spreads by consuming fuel. So, what if instead of trying to put out the fire, we give it something that disagrees with it? The collective intelligence of every advanced civilization in the galaxy focused on Mike's words, trying to understand his logic. Explain, the Ancient One commanded. Tommy, you remember when we were kids and your dog ate that whole chocolate cake? Made him so sick he couldn't eat anything for a week? Yeah, poor Rex. Took forever to get better. What if we fed this rift something that would make it sick? Something that would make it stop wanting to eat space-time? The alien observers exchanged rapid communications. The concept was so simple it was absurd, and so absurd it might actually work. "What did you have in mind?" asked High Chancellor Vortex. Mike's voice carried the distinctive tone that alien civilizations had learned to fear, casual confidence in the face of impossible odds. "Sarah, Tommy, you guys got your usual supplies on board? Coffee, energy drinks, and determination," Sarah confirmed. "Tools, spare parts, and stubborn refusal to accept that things can't be fixed," Tommy added. "Perfect. Okay, here's the plan. We're going to fly straight into that rift and see if we can give it a case of cosmic indigestion." The plan that followed was recorded in detail by alien observers and would later be classified as the most audacious act of controlled chaos in galactic history. The three human vessels approached the space-time rift in formation. At precisely the right moment, all three captains performed the ritual that had become legend throughout the galaxy. "Hold my coffee," Mike said, handing his mug to his co-pilot. "Hold my energy drink," Tommy announced, passing his beverage to his engineering assistant. "Hold my tea," Sarah declared, giving her cup to her navigator. Then they flew directly into the space-time rift. What happened next violated so many laws of physics that several alien species had to develop new mathematical concepts just to describe it. The humans didn't try to destroy the rift or contain it. Instead, they began fixing it. Mike Patterson used standard construction equipment to build a framework inside the rift itself, creating what he called structural support for reality. Tommy Rodriguez began repairing the damaged space-time using techniques he'd learned fixing broken engines, treating the fundamental fabric of the universe like a particularly complex machine. Sarah Chun navigated through dimensions that didn't exist, using her intuitive understanding of three-dimensional space to find her way through 11-dimensional anomalies. The space-time rift, confronted with humans who treated universal destruction as just another repair job, began to behave differently. Instead of consuming energy and growing larger, it started to stabilize. The impossible colors began to fade to more reasonable hues. The reality warping effects began to diminish. "It's working," Mike announced over the communication array. "The rift is starting to close up. Tommy, can you give me a hand with this quantum stabilizer thing?" "Sure thing, Mike. Just need to adjust the temporal flux coupling." "Sarah, can you hold this steady while I tighten down the spacetime manifold?" "No problem. This is actually easier than parallel parking in downtown Detroit." Within 4 hours, the space-time rift that had threatened to consume multiple star systems was completely sealed. Not only sealed, but the humans had somehow improved the structural integrity of local space-time in the process. The area now showed quantum stability readings that were actually better than baseline normal. Bootstrapped to Galactic Council, Mike's voice crackled over the communication array. "Problem solved. The rift is closed, and we've reinforced the local space-time structure to prevent future anomalies. Should be good for at least a few thousand years." The silence from the alien observers stretched for several long minutes. Finally, High Chancellor Vortex managed to respond. "How? How did you accomplish this?" "Our greatest scientific minds calculated that the anomaly was impossible to resolve." "Well," Mike replied thoughtfully, "I guess the thing is, we didn't really think about whether it was possible or not. We just saw something that was broken and needed fixing. That's what humans do. We fix things." But the mathematical complexity alone should have required computational power beyond your civilization's capabilities, protested the collective mind of Arcturus. "Math's important," Tommy chimed in, "but sometimes you just need to listen to what the problem is telling you. That rift wasn't trying to destroy everything, it was just confused about how reality was supposed to work. We just helped it remember." "And the navigation through 11-dimensional space?" asked the Ancient One, genuine curiosity overriding their usual detached demeanor. Sarah's laugh carried clearly over the communication system. "Honestly, I just treated it like a really complicated interstate highway system. Take the dimensional exit that feels right, avoid the reality construction zones, and don't worry too much about the parts that don't make sense. The alien civilizations monitoring the conversation exchanged rapid communications. The humans had just solved a crisis that threatened galactic extinction, and they were describing it like routine maintenance work. Human vessels, High Chancellor Vortex announced formally, the Galactic Council wishes to express its gratitude for your actions today. You have saved billions of lives across multiple star systems. Happy to help, Mike replied cheerfully. That's what neighbors do, right? Help each other out when things get tough. As the three human vessels prepared to return to their normal duties, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss the implications of what they had witnessed. The evidence is conclusive, Ambassador Crix reported to the assembled representatives. Humans consistently demonstrate abilities that exceed their apparent limitations. They approach impossible problems with casual confidence and solve them using methods that defy our understanding of universal law. More concerning, added the collective mind of Arcturus, is their apparent inability to recognize when tasks should be impossible. They simply see problems that need solving and proceed to solve them. The Ancient One, whose consciousness had expanded during the humans' repair work to observe their techniques directly, spoke with newfound respect in their solar wind voice. I have analyzed their methods extensively. Humans do not break the laws of physics. They operate under different assumptions about what those laws allow. Their success comes not from superior technology or knowledge, but from their refusal to accept limitations that other species consider absolute. High Chancellor Vortex consulted the comprehensive database of human incidents that had been compiled over the past months. The pattern was clear and consistent across every recorded case. Based on all available evidence, Vortex announced, this council hereby classifies humanity as a Class Omega beneficial anomaly. They are to be granted full diplomatic status and offered membership in the Galactic Council. Furthermore, the Chancellor continued, we are establishing new protocols for any situation involving space-time anomalies, impossible engineering problems, or diplomatic crises that have resisted conventional solutions. In such cases, human assistance is to be requested immediately. However, Ambassador Crix added with obvious nervousness, we are also establishing mandatory safety protocols. Any situation involving humans and beverages is to be monitored closely. All personnel are advised to maintain safe distances. When humans announce their intention to take a look at any problem classified as impossible, the motion passed unanimously. 3 days later, the first Human Galactic Cooperation Agreement was signed aboard the Bootstrap, with Mike Patterson representing humanity alongside formal diplomatic representatives from Earth. The ceremony was notable for being the first interstellar treaty negotiation conducted while the primary human negotiator was drinking coffee and occasionally pausing to adjust a malfunctioning artificial gravity generator. Just one question, High Chancellor Vortex asked as the ceremony concluded. Your species' consistent success at impossible tasks appears to be triggered by the consumption and temporary transfer of beverages. Is this some form of ritual preparation for accessing enhanced capabilities? Mike looked thoughtful for a moment, then shrugged. Not really. It's just that when you're about to do something that might not work, you want to make sure your drink doesn't get spilled in the process. Can't fix the universe on an empty stomach, you know? The translation matrices of 47 different species struggled to process this explanation. Finally, the Ancient One spoke for all of them. We have decided that some aspects of human behavior are beyond our need to understand. We will simply observe and appreciate the results. As the alien delegations departed, Tommy Rodriguez was already examining the Bootstrap's communication array, which had been making odd noises during the ceremony. Hey, Sarah, he called out. This comm system sounds a little off. Mind holding my energy drink while I take a look at it? Every alien observer immediately activated their emergency recording protocols. Throughout the galaxy, alert systems began broadcasting the now familiar warning, human beverage event in progress. All nearby vessels advised to maintain safe distance and prepare to witness impossible engineering solutions. The galaxy had learned to live with humans, but they would never truly understand them. And perhaps that was for the best. Some mysteries were better left unsolved, especially when those mysteries consistently resulted in beneficial outcomes for everyone involved. In the months that followed, human engineering teams became the galaxy's go-to solution for impossible problems. The hold my beer protocols became standard emergency procedures across 3-star systems. Alien civilizations established exchange programs specifically to study human problem-solving techniques, though they rarely had success replicating human methods. The humans, for their part, remained blissfully unaware of their reputation as reality-bending miracle workers. They continued to approach each new challenge with the same casual confidence that had made them legends, treating universe-threatening crises like routine maintenance calls and solving impossible problems with the same attitude they brought to fixing a leaky faucet. And throughout the galaxy, whenever something was declared impossible by the greatest minds of advanced civilizations, someone would inevitably suggest, maybe we should ask the humans, but make sure to bring extra recording equipment, and maybe warn the nearby star systems just in case. The universe, it turned out, was a much more interesting place with humans in it. More chaotic, certainly, but also more hopeful. Because no matter how impossible a problem seemed, there was always a chance that somewhere a human was finishing their coffee and announcing their intention to take a look at it. And in a galaxy full of species that had learned to accept the limitations of physics and probability, that made all the difference at the end.